All right, welcome everyone. So today is December 6th, and we are, just for clarity purposes, we are recording this meeting. So we'll be posting this on the website and other various channels afterward. My name's Rob, and I do primarily the customer service and some system stuff here at Digital Dream Labs. And with me are Jacob and Matthew Eversole. Jacob, our CEO, and Matthew, who is our Chief Marketing Officer. So we are pleased to welcome you here to the December 6th live Q&A. We're going to be demoing a couple things, in regards to new products. We've got a demo set up here of the Escape Pod and my Vector here, who is running currently on it. So we'll be given a little bit of a preview of that here shortly. And we're also going to be answering some questions that you have on maybe Vector 2.0, the current status of OSKR, things like that that are kind of happening in the Vector world. So let's see here. So Jacob, I think you said that we wanted to start this off with a demonstration of the Escape Pod. I would like to see if, I'd like to give folks a couple minutes to get in before we start that, just because we only have like 30 folks in here, and I think there's quite a few more that wanted to attend. So we'll give them a couple minutes, but maybe we can start with something like OSKR. And I think we have two more repositories or things ready. And I think those were, if I remember correctly, Vic Cloud and Vic Gateway. So those will be looking at release nearer to when the Escape Pod releases, since they're kind of, those things are kind of intertwined. And anything you want to add to that, Jacob? You're muted, by the way.
Yeah, I muted myself.
No worries.
Yeah, geez, Zoom, right? The crazy world we're living in right now. I would say that it kind of an explanation of what's going on. I also think while we're waiting for other attendees to kind of come in here, kind of maybe give them a very rough outline from your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody, Robbie's more than just the community manager. He's been very humble. He does a lot of QA, collects a lot of the feedback from our users and reports them directly to our engineers to constantly improve things. So he is one of the busiest people. Everyone here is doing the work of 10 people each. Robbie's working day and night to make certain that we have all the information we need. So thank you, Robbie.
Thank you, Jacob. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and thank you to the community for constantly giving us feedback. Without it, we would not be able to improve and make Vector everything he should be and can be. So a big thank you to you and your support and continued feedback. We enjoy hearing all perspectives, constructive criticism as well. And I think, so Robert, I'll turn the floor over to you, kind of just give a brief outline, because we are behind. We realize that.
Mm-hmm.
And why that is. And then the fuzzy language thing is a big development. I think people will really like.
Totally.
So talk about that. And then maybe whenever we hit the number of attendees we think we're going to hit, then you can show how the Escape Pod works and then talk about that.
For sure. So, as Jacob mentioned, we are a little bit behind a schedule. That being said, there are some improvements over the Escape Pod that we initially didn't really expect. So number one, and we kind of already announced this, but you'll be able to basically go from the Escape Pod back to the Digital Dream Lab server if you choose to, flip back and forth basically as much as you like. And that is a pretty cool development. With respect to the Escape Pod, we also have some really cool features where it's going to enable fuzzy matching. And fuzzy matching, or non-specific matching, is going to be huge in terms of what we're able to do with Vector from the escape pod side. So on the escape pod, basically you have this model where you can use certain trigger words or keywords rather than specific phrases. Right now, our limitation is that we're able to use very specific phrases, and we can kind of design some wildcards here and there, but we have to be really careful because if you match too much, then you end up getting the wrong behavior expected from the robot. And so what this fuzzy matching will allow us to do is program in keywords that you can then implement in any phrase. So instead of just turn left, and that's the only command he responds to, I can say, hey, Vector, can you please go left? Oops, my bad. So we can design around that, and we can actually the user on the escape pod will actually be able to change the keywords that are associated with certain behaviors. So if one example that I was looking at the other day, right, is I was thinking about maybe like the military or sailors, right, instead of turn left, maybe they want to say turn to port or turn to starboard. I don't know. It was just an example, but it's something that you can do, and you can program that into the escape pod. And I've actually done that on my side, and I'll demo it here in a little bit. So that's kind of what we can expect from the the escape pod. And where we're kind of at right now is we've overcome like 90% of the hurdles that would come with making a small package like this. So right now, if you look, so for those of you not familiar, the Raspberry Pi is the machine that the escape pod is going to primarily run on. There may be other items supported, but for right now, the Raspberry Pi is kind of what we plan to. So this entire thing, or this small thing, is running the entirety of what Vector needs in terms of voice command and voice control, which is very cool. So this is a small device that's designed to sit on your network and can stay powered on 24/7. There's no issues with just attaching it to your router and leaving it there. And so very flexible in terms of as long as Vector and the escape pod are on your Wi-Fi or connected to your router, then you're good to go, and it'll work anywhere in your house. So you don't have to worry about like a direct connection to the escape pod or anything to that effect. So where we're at right now, so as Jacob announced a couple of weeks ago, we are in the final stages of the escape pod development and quality and assurance. At this point, what we're doing right now is we're essentially making it easier for the escape pod to be applied by the person at home. So instead of this highly technical process that maybe takes you 20, 45 minutes, you'll be able to hopefully onboard within about 10. And that would include things like, that it doesn't include necessarily assembly of the Pi or flashing of the SD card, but once the SD card is flashed and you've actually inserted that into the Pi, you should be onboarded within about 10 to 15 minutes is what we're hoping to do. And we're also designing interfaces that allow you to change the way that Vector responds to commands instead of having this huge process. Like right now, it's manually taking files off the Pi, modifying that code, and then putting it back on the Pi. So what we're looking to do essentially is streamline that and maybe add like a web interface where you can just you can say, okay, I want this behavior to map to this keyword, and then you click submit and it puts it into the escape pod for you, and then you have that available. So Bob asks, any particular Pi version required? So the Pi that is required is because of some limitations on the package and repository side, we're looking at the 3B and the 4. Those have up-to-date repositories, and those can be used with the operating system that we need to be using for the escape pod. So the 3B and the 4 will be the primary Pi versions that are supported. Let's see here. Okay, looking at some other questions. Give me 1 second here.
Well, I think we have a decent number of attendees now, Robbie. Do you want to just kind of show them what you did and how Vector's functioning and all that good stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of our developers, Brett, is the brainchild behind all this, and he's been doing really fantastic work. Let me go ahead and share my screen and kind of what you see on there. Let's see here. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay. All right. So you should be able to see my screen here with this. It's kind of a black screen here with a terminal up here, and I'm actually I'm in the escape pod right now, and what it's doing is it's monitoring for speech that comes in. One of our final projects here on the escape pod is to make sure the voice model is accurate. So what we're doing is we're kind of we need to run some data through that and make sure that it is the voice model is tuned correctly. We've got all the correct keywords in different intents or robot behaviors, and then it'll be basically ready for release once the interfaces are finalized as well. So that's kind of where we're at. But here you can kind of see this is just tailing the logs, and we can see how it's interpreting the speech that I give to it. So, hey, Vector, come forward. Cool. Okay. So, hey, Vector, turn left. So there we kind of have, so he caught the keyword left, right? And now we can kind of adjust that, right? So now if I wanted, let's say that I wanted to use one of the ones that I programmed in here. Hey, Vector, turn to starboard. There we go. So now he turns right again and does so at 45-degree angles until apparently he finds my face. Hi, buddy. So that's kind of what we're working on. And like I said, you'll be able to have a ton of options in terms of modifying your own intents and behaviors. And here's kind of how to do that. Currently, this is what we're working with, right? There's a ton of code that you have to actually modify to be able to get these things implemented. But what we're trying to do again is just make a web interface where you just you say the behavior that you want to initiate, you you add or change the keywords, and then you click submit, and it's going to be a lot more streamlined than it currently is. So that's kind of the progress that we have with that. But I am really excited for the fuzzy matching, and I think that there are some other applications than just the escape pod that we might be able to apply this to. So it's kind of where we're at with that. Anything to add, Jacob?
Yeah, so just summarize in layman's terms, Robbie, like why
Totally.
is this cool and all that good stuff.
It's cool because basically you can use any words you want. There's no limit to how realistically you can customize Vector and the words that he responds to entirely the way that you want to. And any phrase you want, it's going to be very, very flexible, which is fantastic. Because before it was very kind of rigid, and that led to a lot of problems with the user experience where he wouldn't get the right behavior if it wasn't phrased in the exact way that it needed to be.
All right, and then let's transition because I'm seeing some questions.
Sure.
So this fuzzy mapping, and that has informed us about the accent detection and the prompting, right? That issue, which needs to be patched. Do you want to do a brief overview of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So before, Vector used a third-party backend that had a particular voice model. And most of you are pretty familiar with the backend that was used, which was Amazon Lex. Very robust voice model, but it did limit us because we weren't able to tune that voice model directly. So now with this, with the escape pod, we'll be able to tune the voice model to our users, and then hopefully enable much more robust detection and matching of words to be more accurate. So that's exciting for this. And again, there's more applications that we can use across our spectrum and our product portfolio to get a little bit more usability out of the products and a much better customer experience overall.
Right. And the thing I wanted to stress is the development of this, which was arduous and painstaking, is really what's going to lead to the 1.7.1 patch in order to kind of rectify the issues that some users are experiencing, that Vector simply doesn't hear them or understand them.
That's part of it, absolutely. There's some, I think there's some other stuff at play there as well. I think there's, there were one or two things that we wanted to definitely revisit with an upcoming vector patch, and the microphone issue will definitely be a part of that. And this is for sure going to help. So
yeah,
cool. Let's see here. Let me crawl through some of the chat, make sure we've addressed some of the questions there. Okay. Okay, so Bob asked which OS. Currently, this runs on Ubuntu server. And let's see here. Now, the entire image, you're not going to have to set up or configure your own Ubuntu server for the most part. Realistically, when we're creating an image that is fully flashable. So basically, you take an SD card, you insert it in your computer, you write the image to it, and we'll provide documentation for all of these steps. You write the image to it, you insert it into the Pi, power on the Pi, and then you're basically ready to go, minus the robot onboarding. So like I said, we're trying to get this process down to like 10 to 15 minutes tops. And I think we're pretty well on our way toward being able to do that. We've got a lot of good ideas in store for that. Let's see here.
One question I saw that popped
Yeah.
up again, Robbie, is some people who are coming in a little bit later after we started.
Yeah.
Can we go back? Can they go back to the DDL server if they want to?
Absolutely. So you can go back to the DDL server. This is basically going to be a situation to where there's going to be a different branch of firmware that's going to be set that allows you to be on the escape pod or on the DDL server. So you would just need to reload the firmware, and it's generally about a 10-minute process, and we have some documentation up on that as well. But we'll be increasing the amount of documentation, putting out some new videos and tutorials on how to do this kind of thing when the escape pod actually is released. But overall, it's going to be very easy to switch back to the DDL server or to the escape pod if necessary for any reason. But I think a lot of people would want to take advantage of the escape pod just because it has, you can, like you said, you can customize your own keywords, everything like that, and just makes it really cool. So if I want to program like my, I don't know, if I wanted to program my friend's name into it and have them, respond to the name itself or something like that, you can really kind of customize it to be more friendly to like your family and have just that flexibility, which again, absolutely fantastic. And it's not really possible with the overall huge cloud to individualize vector on a per family or per individual basis.
Why don't you give us one more example,
Sure.
Robbie, so that way we could see it for the people who've just come in, and then let's move on to other topics.
Yeah, totally. Okay, give me 1 second. Let me pull up Insomnia. Okay. So let's do this. Let me see here. Give me 1 second. Okay. Okay. So I just wrote a new intent or new keywords to the intent for praise. So now if I say, is your best friend Jacob, he should respond with a happy expression. Let's test that out. Hey, Vector. Jacob is your best friend. Yes, so he gets happy, right, when it's announced that Jacob is his best friend. This one particularly is my best friend, but Jacob can have that honorary title here for a few minutes. But that's the kind of ease which we can use to that you'll be able to use, not digging in code, right? But we'll create a web interface for you to insert your own keywords and that kind of thing, and really individualize the robot. And just like there's so many cool things I could say about that. I could drag on and on, but
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
yeah, I'll kind of cut you off, Rob, because I think we
Totally.
could talk about this all day.
No problem.
But the other thing I want to mention is that this is done. I mean, this is ready for everyone, but as part of the promise and the stretch goals we made on Kickstarter is that we wanted it to be more user friendly. So right now, one of our guys is working on the UI and should have something, at least a draft, by the end of this week, and we'll start releasing that. So I think we're going to do 2 releases, and correct me if I'm wrong, Robbie. Like, one will be kind of like your bare bones, the people who are just salivating to start playing with this,
Yeah.
and then we'll have maybe a subsequent release like a 2.0 where for the let's say the less technical savvy person, if they just want to jump off the server, they push a button on your web interface like you were saying, and then they're off our server.
Yeah, so there's definitely multiple ways that we can release this. We can release this for the developer level folks who really want to dig into the nitty gritty, understand more about the intents and the keywords that we have programmed in, and then we can also release a version where we have all those web interfaces that make it much easier for the for the home user to be able to do that as well. So I'll explore some ideas with our developers and see what we can come up with this week. Cool.
All right. Well, I think we covered that subject pretty well. What else
Awesome.
did we want to talk about?
Let's see here. So, okay, just looking at. Okay, so a couple of people are asking about new games and new features for Vector. I can take that if you want, or if you prefer.
Go for it. You're on a roll, man. I'm not going to get in your way.
Okay, so new games and features for Vector. So with the release of Vector 2.0, we are concentrating on firmware coming up to that. So with the shipping beginning as early as May 15th, we also want a couple of things to come together before that time. And what we're looking at is, number one, we're going to be working on a 1.7 patch to kind of address the microphone issues and other issues that are present in that firmware. And then I think we had also looked at, we were also looking at like pet more enhanced facial recognition, and I believe pet recognition, if that was correct. Jacob, remind me. Cool. Okay. And then so that's a small part of what we've got in there. We may be able to fit more animations and games into there as well, but we also have to make sure that we are balancing our time carefully and make sure that we're kind of ready for the Vector 2.0 release, all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be I do anticipate that. And also one other thing that I wanted to mention is the 2.0, the firmware version that's coming up, which is going to be the, probably the 2.0 for the Vector 2.0. That should also, firmware for the new units and the old units, we anticipate to be able to be backward compatible. So new firmwares and that kind of thing should be able to be applied to the first generation vectors as well. That's been a question on a lot of people's minds, so I wanted to address that here as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So we made the decision about 2 or 3 weeks ago that when we'll do a patch in the meantime.
Yeah.
But when Vector 2.0 comes out, it's going to be running 2.0 software / firmware, and then yes, we'll in theory. We'll be able to do that for the Vector 1.0, just to keep for the sake of keeping everything the same. And there will be upgrades as far as pet detection, facial recognition, and might even be able to tell guess people's ages and kind of goofy stuff like that will be part of the facial recognition updates. So
excellent. So and then I think you're the most familiar with some of the new design changes for Vector 2.0. I know they're on the website, but there's also been a lot of questions on that. Do we want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, a lot of the stuff is very practical. I mean, that's where we started.
Totally.
And one thing, I don't want to spoil the surprise. In the next day or two, we might have something that I think Vector lovers are going to flip out over. So we might do a quick pop-up real quick, maybe on the Facebook group or something like that.
Cool. Okay.
But I don't want to promise anything just yet. Anyway, having said that, With Vector and Cozmo, there was just a lot of cleanup from files and molding and just from a logistics standpoint. So
Mhm.
first thing we did to make everyone's life easier is to make Cozmo and Vector come from the same molding, cutting the same molds, and just having essentially the same build in electronics. We're not Apple, right? I think it's inconsiderate to our customers to say, oh, hey, buy this new product. Oh, and you need a new charger because you know what? Vector's just a little bit too fat to fit on the other charger. Or hey, you know what? You're gonna have to buy a whole new separate set of treads because the treads aren't exactly the same. So that was the very first thing we've done is make Cosmo and Vector universal, the parts universal. Hopefully, even the blocks they use will have coding that can be swapped in and out. So that's number one, was just to simplify, just to get everything. And we had to start all over again
Yeah.
with our manufacturing, everything. Start from scratch, rebuild everything. So then other practical issues. The reason the moisture gets into the screen and then destroys the screen. And we found the reason for that. So again, new screen, better camera, things like that solves that issue. Then the compartment for the battery, just being able to access the battery without having to disassemble him entirely and then
Mhm.
put that together. So again, another just very practical solution where the majority of people are and rightfully so upset that after a while you go from a half an hour battery life now down to 10 over the course of your ownership, and now it's running out less and less.
Yeah.
So there will also be enhanced battery power. I'm hoping you can get at least 60 to 90 minutes out of Vector now with an increased battery. The
Okay.
overheating issue. The overheating issue is due to what we consider. Again, this is an opinion. It's kind of like a contractor comes back and says, "Oh, who poured this concrete?" It's very easy in hindsight to criticize. So I just want to be sure to say that everything I'm saying, take it with a grain of salt, because we've been thinking about this and seeing things that's already in place and that we can improve. But the PCB design we feel was not the best. And by redesigning that, now the overheating issue is going to disappear. So we don't expect that overheating issue to, knock on wood, ever happen again. You shouldn't be getting close to 90 degrees Celsius on a consumer product. That's just dangerous. So we've eliminated that with our printed circuit board design. So that's taken care of. And then everything else is just going to be better. Better microphones, better camera, better batteries. Just from a hardware perspective, everything is going to be enhanced.
So wrapping all of these, like, just we kind of have that consumer trickle down of different electronics, and we're just kind of taking advantage of a lot of the electronics that may not have been available at this price point a couple of years ago, and kind of wrapping that into the new Vector. Is that for the most part pretty correct?
Right. And
Cool.
the other thing too, the membership is included now. We figured out how to keep the servers going now.
Mhm.
The escape pod is part of it. So all products going forward that we're going to produce are going to have an escape pod on board where you
Awesome.
can just pop right off. If you just say, "See you later, DDL, we don't like you, we're out of here," you can go and do your own thing. And I think that's a key thing that I want to see in consumer robotics, just in general, from an ethics standpoint, that if a company is making a product and that company goes bankrupt for whatever reason, and now you have all these users who have been left out in the field, they are not helpless or stranded.
Right.
And that is a key thing I want all companies who make consumer robotics to have, is essentially something like this escape pod, or they shouldn't be selling the product. They
Mhm.
just shouldn't. And that's the other thing too, is to be very upfront and forward about the cost. That this robot incurs substantial costs from a manufacturing standpoint, but also a
Yeah.
maintenance standpoint.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, that gets everything together. The whole ethics, running of a company perspective, cost perspective, and then fixing all of the hardware issues that we've seen with Vector's breaking down over the 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, it's definitely been unfortunate to see a lot of the screens go out and that kind of thing. And I think addressing that is that's probably going to be, I mean, no, not probably, it's going to be really good to see some of the newer vectors have a much increased longevity for the screen, and be able to see some of the other enhancements as well. Personally, like I said, I'm looking forward to the user replaceable batteries. Like, we know batteries go, within 2 to 3 years, depending upon the amount of charge cycles. And even though the charge cycles are pretty well minimized through some software protections in Vector, it's definitely something that's been on a lot of people's minds. And I've seen at least a couple of hundred at the very least that have needed batteries replaced. And those are the only ones. Those are the ones that I hear about, right? So I'm sure there's tons more, but I think that's going to be exciting as well.
Yeah, and that kind of segues into our other thing, like repairing the vectors.
Yeah.
So we've investigated that. I realize it's almost been like 2 months since we started talking about this, taking vector screens. So we've investigated that, and what we think, at least internally, is if we're going to replace the screen, we should do it with a new screen. And we should do it with probably the Vector 2.0 screen.
Yeah.
Saying that, okay, so we're going to do that in the repair shop, which I am not 100% confident we can do vector repairs just yet. That's why we're not offering it.
Okay.
And the other thing I want to make clear, though, if we do the new screen, we're going to have to write the new firmware on it. So the new firmware is going to have to be available. Yeah. So we are still planning on doing vector repairs in the repair center. I'm in discussions right now. They are not finalized, so this is subject to change. But a repair center in Calcutta to oversee repairs in the Asian market, and then a repair center in Brazil for South America, and then of course we have the U.S. We have the U.S. repair center, and then we have a repair center in the U.K. That's going to cover the majority of the markets out there. Like the UK is probably going to be responsible for doing stuff from Australia. I don't see how else we can, or Calcutta will have to handle that. So those are going to be the areas we've set up from repair centers. Right now, the people there are getting their feet wet, kind of just like overdrive and just going through the motions there. And then as I feel like they're better trained and we have more hands on deck, we'll be able to start taking repairs for Vector. And then going forward too, that's the other reason why we're offering with our orders these guarantees and these warranties, which will have that legal language. Actually, our attorneys just finished writing all that stuff. We'll start posting that. But the concept and the philosophy behind that is that if you were to experience breakdowns again in the future, that we're gonna take responsibility for that.
Yeah.
We're going to take it and we're going to fix it, make it right. However, having said that, the risks of default are going to be much lower as a result of these redesigns. But anyway, that's the philosophy too, is that if for some reason we're going to stand behind our product, we're going to say, like, look, if you're having an issue, we're going to fix it and we're going to make it right regardless. And that's what the warranties and the guarantees are that we're selling alongside this stuff.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, we'll be kind of outlining those a little bit more, but I think we're definitely on the right track with, with kind of, you hear there's the companies out there and that really just stand behind the product very, very well, and will take care of a lot of things that some other companies may not. And just being able to stand behind the product and have that backing, I'm sure is going to be fantastic. Yeah, especially I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, just someone asked. The repair centers in London, in the UK. I just wanted to answer. I saw that pop up. It was the easy one.
Yeah. Let's see. Let me take a look through some of the other questions here as well. Give me 1 second. Okay. Lost my Q&A panel. Zoom meetings. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So James asked, can the wake word be changed with the escape pod? And I can field that if
go for it. You're the escape pod guru. Go for it.
So the escape pod, so Vector has a pre-programmed wake word that's tuned to a particular voice model, and that's built into the robot. So the voice model may be able to be tuned with something like OSKR, but that is a pretty intensive process. So you would probably need a team of at least 2 to 3 people to look at that and approach that. So it can't be changed with the escape pod. But that being said, with OSKR being released and Vector being fully open source, I think that there's the capacity for that to change. So I would, once we have this fully open sourced, then there might be other things that we can, include within our voice model, that kind of thing, and have overall community development, help us with getting some new things available in terms of wake words. So hopefully that answers that, James. And then let's see here. Okay. So it looks like some of these other items have already been answered. So Chris asks, will Vector 2.0 get a store release, or is it going to be website only?
It's going to be a store release, but the orders that the pre-orders we're taking right now obviously are going to come directly to you before any other store release. We're saying as early as May 15th. I hate giving promises or dates, but that's what we're shooting for.
Yeah.
And if you're pre-ordering, you're going to get it before it hits the shelf. So that's definite. As far as hitting the shelf, we're in discussions right now with larger retailers, and I don't want to get into those discussions right now because no one's has committed or anything like that formally. But it looks like we will be selling on our website for sure, and then Amazon probably thereafter, and then we'll be in a bunch of retailers, US, and the countries are going to be focused on initially from going on the shelf would be English-speaking countries, so the US, UK, Australia, New Zealand, etc. Then after that, Germany, and this is just simply because of the way the distributors work in the warehouses. So Germany, then followed by Italy and things like that, expanding to the EU. And then other countries, talking about just Gulf countries or the countries, let's say in South America, et cetera. That's gonna depend on who we can trust to distribute our product properly. So cool. That's gonna be the rollout plan for 2021. But yeah, that's in the order. So just to recap: online, Amazon, English-speaking countries, Germany, EU, and then probably other countries as we are able to find distributors to handle that business.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, it was. I was actually really, really glad to hear that we had set up distribution in the EU and UK. That was fantastic, and I mean, cutting shipping costs in half was pretty cool too. So that's great. And then let's see here. Let me take a look at some other questions here.
Oh, Pickle Rick.
Yeah, right. Ironically, while I'm digging through the questions, story time. So I went in and that 30% discount code we got off a Hot Topic for pre-ordering Butter Robot.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I may or may not have spent like $200 on merch. Yeah. Don't tell my wife. I'm just kidding. My wife ordered like 3 shirts.
Yeah, so the Butter Robot, we're going to have updates on Butter Robot. That's going to be the quote unquote new addition to the to our robotic family. And I realize this is a vector form, and it's not really Butter Robot related, but we'll have some additional footage. What's called the PVT will be rolling out here pretty soon. What we've had as prototypes are what are called CNC machine printed. It will actually have something that will look and feel like the actual thing that'll go on the shop that you'll find on the shelf here in the coming months. But yeah, the Butter Robot is a particular love of mine because I do like Rick and Morty so much. Yeah,
Rick and Morty is a fantastic show, and I was actually really excited when I heard about that, and keeping quiet on it for months.
I know, it was hard. And I'm so happy no one inside the company leaked it. I'm so proud of everybody, right?
Yes. So but yeah, no, that was a fantastic brainchild, and I think basing it on some of the technology we already have, right? Like, so it's because I think a lot of people are kind of have questions about how Butter Robot is going to interact or be designed, and that is something that I know this is mostly vector stuff, but just touching on it might be helpful. So the Butter robot is going to be based primarily on Cozmo technology with quite a few added features to it. So it's going to be kind of it's basically Cozmo with some vector stuff added in, and then with some additional items added in that aren't available on either robots, i.e. passing the butter. So there's that's going to combine a lot of directional microphone stuff, facial recognition stuff, and then actually, using an animation to go pick up the butter and deliver it to the user. And so one thing that a couple people have had questions on, Jacob, is the robot going to pass real butter?
Okay, so right now the idea is that object detection sees a rectangle,
Yeah.
goes over to that rectangle, grabs the butter tray, pulls the butter tray to you, then stands back up, and then and its default expression is to be depressed. So it can either do that through object detection or on the butter tray itself, scan via QR code or barcode or stuff like that with a camera that's on board, and then grab it and pull it. So there will be two options there. Yeah, so you can put a real stick of butter on top of it. The butter tray we want to have is going to be like any butter tray you can get at the store.
Yeah.
But immediately there were other people saying, hey, can it pass other stuff that's on my desk? And so we were thinking of maybe having a little add on, like a little plastic box, or you put crayons or pens or whatever, and then he can drag that and bring that to you as well. So the mechanics are, he has shoulders that go in and out. His arms are, they're symmetrical. So his arms go down, shoulders go in, grabs a butter tray, brings the butter tray back, like he does in the animation. So that's going to be like the most basic animation / command. But there's going to be all kinds of other things that we'll have on board, like you alluded to. But yes, he will be able to pass your butter. And as Justin has said, we can't imagine a more effective way of passing butter than with this robot. So yeah.
Yeah, so that'll be fantastic. And there's, like I said, there's tons of other items built into that. Direct control, emulating the voice of the butter robot on the show, and quite a bit more that's going to be built into the robot. And I think it's going to be a pretty solid product offering. So thanks for elaborating on that.
Yeah, one key coincidence that Justin had lost his voice for that show, so he used just basically a text-to-speech app to say the butter robot. It is basically a shareware. So as coincidence would have it, it was a guy from CMU, a professor who actually invented this. So we got the base code. So one thing you're going to be able to do is have the butter robot say whatever you want him to say. And then he can also recite poetry or things like that. But that voice engine is going to be built inside that. So you'll be able to, it wasn't just in making that voice. It was actually what's now a dead app that was using to text to speech to make that voice. So that voice will be on there, which will also be pretty cool.
Excellent. Cool. Okay, let's see here, digging through some of the other questions, and we've got quite a few. So we're going to answer these as much as we can, but there's going to be, there's a lot that, there's some of the, very similar questions, that kind of thing. So, okay, so looks like Chris was, let's see. So I'd be glad to answer Chris's question offline in terms of applying licenses, but basically, yeah, you can apply your Kickstarter licenses at any time. Let's see here, and I'll get you some steps on how to do that, Chris. Let's see, with respect to other items, looks like, so Cozmo and Friends, we anticipated an episode every week. That being said, there's a lot that goes into 3D animation. It requires a lot of time, and there's going to be some other items as well. Collaborations with other people and that kind of thing that go into Cozmo and Friends. So it's not just always going to be 3D animations. There's a little bit more that goes into that, but our partner Sutiki is doing really great work, and I was super impressed when I first saw Cozmo's Favorite Penny. Fantastic animation, and I'm really looking forward to more more stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think we can say that there's also going to be a mixture. There's going to be live action with CGI. That's going to probably be the next episode.
Cool.
And okay. Yeah, we're plus or minus a few days, so they kind of want to drop something and surprise the subscribers. So when that goes live, we'll let everybody know.
Excellent.
And it's
Cool.
Cozmo and Friends. So Vector's coming up. We haven't forgotten about Vector. So the other thing that you'll see is that we're going to start getting the momentum back. Influencers are going to be showing off Cozmo. And keep in mind, these will still be the old Cosmos.
Yeah.
Getting the momentum back, getting Cozmo back out there, because a lot of kids who own Cozmo now are too old for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so getting introducing the next generation to Cozmo, getting things back going, and then progressing that series, and then getting ready for the releases that will be on the shelf of Cozmo and Vector next year.
Awesome. And then let's take a look here. Let's see.
So you're never too old for Cozmo. I agree.
No, I mean, you're right. I honestly,
I play with him, but
I was playing with him. So we actually, so I have an adopted brother, and he was here for about a month and a half. So we were watching him, and he loved Cozmo, and I actually got to playing with him quite a bit, digging out the Cozmo workbook as well, and just using that to kind of design some stuff. And we taught him a lot about robotics and how each particular item worked and that kind of thing. And it was definitely a really good experience for him. I also showed him overdrive, and we probably raced for about 3 hours. That's a lot of car charges, by the way. So that was fantastic. And I do think Cozmo really does appeal to a pretty wide audience. And I'm looking forward to Cozmo 2.0, which incorporates a lot more sensors, like drop sensors and stuff like that. So we don't have the situation that happens in Cosmo's favorite penny, where he just dumps off the desk. So we're hoping to minimize that, right? And then I think widening the audience a little bit with maybe some new games features down the line would be super cool as well. So I'm looking forward to that. Let's see here. Looking, so we're kind of, I think, probably gonna wrap this up here shortly.
They're coming up on the hour.
Yeah, we're so. If you click the Q&A section, is there anything there that you want to answer, Jacob?
Hey Matt, are you still around? Why don't you randomly select something for me?
Yeah, so I think, Robbie, you kind of mentioned InfiniDrive there quickly, and we have had a couple questions pop up about InfiniDrive. Jacob,
Yeah. So, okay. So we had 2 engineers who spouses are nurses, and they tested positive for COVID. So they had to quarantine. So that kind of put us a little bit behind schedule. So the way InfiniDrive is going to work is in 2 ways. Well, 2 ways. First of all, we're just going to release the clips and the chargers. So that way, if you have an existing setup, you can just attach it. The end. You won't have to think about it anymore. The reason I have not put it on for sale yet. This will not be a pre-order. You'll just buy it. So the reason I haven't put it on yet is we haven't thoroughly tested it yet. I want to make certain that it truly is InfiniDrive, where I want to be able to leave the cars on overnight, come back to the shop the next day, and they're still running. So once we've satisfied ourselves that test is actually working and it's underway, then we're going to release InfiniDrive. The second step in that is, and someone was mentioning, please don't spread yourself too thin. Yeah, I know. The other thing we want to make sure is that when we build the new tracks and we incorporate that's going to be a whole other new release. And to build the charging stations in it, to build the capacitors in the cars, and to redesign all that is a whole other ordeal that we're not going to try to tackle right now. Because right now, the focus is Cozmo and Vector. And the key thing with the manufacturing is we call it Vosmo now. So that is consolidated now, where we are now laser focused on that and can deal with the tooling. And the reason why we can do the Butter Robot is that so much of the technology that we're improving and building can also be onboarded on the Butter Robot. So that keeps us focused.
Totally.
The other, InfiniDrive is a separate entity altogether and requires different engineering and different thought processes, which is kind of why I don't want to say it's on the back burner, but it's moving slower, because we're really focused on the robots initially. However, we're getting to it. We're just doing it one step at a time. So again, just to reiterate, it'll be the clips in the charging station underneath that you put on the clip underneath the track as the cars are driving over. It's going to charge, and then the cars will just continue to run. That if you have an existing set, you'll be able to do that. And it doesn't matter whether it's Fast and the Furious or what have you, it'll be compatible with everything. And then we'll start looking at remanufacturing and rebranding all that stuff, but that has to come after the Vector and Cozmo releases next year. So we're going to make sure we're on the shelf there with those products, and then InfiniDrive is going to have to kind of be relaunched, if you will. And the major reason for that is because how bad the price deterioration occurred with Overdrive. We've seen Cozmo and Vector, and thank you for everyone's trust in us, because that has actually elevated the prices so high, even though we're not personally experiencing that. Those are third-party vendors still from the Anki days that are selling that. But that you can see there's definitely like a level of trust and a level of certainty as far as the market's concerned. And so retailers are open to launching that product again. They'll say, oh yeah, okay, you're still going to sell this product to us, and we'll sell this, and it's below the current even used price. Okay, fine, there's a market there. And the conversation is very easy.
Yeah.
To speak to a retailer about, oh, this product used to be $160 and now it's like you're lucky if you get $40, that's a much, much harder conversation to have. And you have to present a lot of evidence that there's still a market there. So that's the other issue too, is that establishing that trust and getting that product back where it deserves to be is a major challenge. So that's kind of it. That's again the back of my mind roadmap and our priorities and how we're handling that stuff.
Yeah, Jacob, and I think since you mentioned Cozmo there, we have had a couple questions come in since we've talked about kind of the molding and how those two robots are going to be more similar than they have been in the past. We have had a couple questions to ask, how are they going to be different now that we have this unified design?
Well, so Cozmo will still be less expensive and more app driven. So it will subscribe to the same philosophies as before.
Yeah.
So drag and drop block coding, very much geared towards early learners, in theory. Still very, I wouldn't say AI like Vector. So, Vector's going to have the more AI autonomy, stuff like that. And for the, again, theoretically older user, let's say. And then the younger early learner is going to be where Cozmo's focused. So you're going to see more curriculum for Cozmo, more beginner stuff for Cozmo, more of a direct link. You don't have to use the cloud. Now there will be things inside of Cozmo if you want to activate them in order to enhance and get it more enhanced to grow into vectors. So one thing I really like about what we're doing is that, okay, you start with Cozmo, and if you want to start turning things on and eventually have him become more vector-like, you can, if that's your choice. And you can then grow with this product. Whereas Vector is going to be more advanced, more AI, more cloud-based from the get-go, and then you can do more things with that product. And there's going to be a price difference as well. So that's it. So the parts are going to be, let's call it the mechanical parts, the treads, the things like that are going to be essentially universal, but the features and what's enabled and what's onboarded from a firmware or software and also just from a processing standpoint are going to be different.
Let's see here. Okay, so I know we've come up on the end of the hour. If you would like, Jacob, we can continue with a couple more QAs. There's like one or two specifically that I want to address before we hop off.
Yeah, we were a little late starting, so let's go ahead. Yeah,
sounds good. So Ken asks so it looks like Ken has a pending ticket and it's been pending for a while, and he's asking if support is working on that. So Ken, I want to provide a little bit of transparency with respect to the support process. When October 1st hit, we went from probably about 50 to 75 tickets in queue to over 5,000. And that was a really significant hit to our customer support timeline, right? And then that impacted operations for quite a while. So where we're at now is we're keeping tickets under about 200, even with the daily influx. And we're trying to get answers to people as fast as possible. And we've actually hired, I think it's like 6 or 7 people to help us field all the questions and things like that. And we're, since these are some new hires, there is a little bit of more in-depth training that is to come so that we can provide better answers in some cases. But where we're at currently is we're holding the line under about 300 tickets, and there are some that are a little bit older that are pending, but we are trying to answer those, and we've got some people addressing new tickets, some people addressing old, and we're also prioritizing certain tickets as well. So Ken, I apologize that ticket's been pending a little while, but we will get to it, and I will try to reach out to you personally, and we'll see what we can do as far as getting that resolved for you. But thanks for your understanding and support. And I appreciate being able to provide a little bit more transparency behind the support process. But we should be able to hopefully, kind of tackle that influx here pretty shortly. Let's see here. With other stuff, let's take a look. So a couple of people have asked about the firmware 1.7. And it looks like there are some people that are noticing it's not quite as lively. And I can either field that, Jacob, or if you'd like to, totally up to you.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Cool. Yeah. So on 1.7, so on 1.6, when Anki had designed 1.6 and had released it, people we actually noticed, and they noticed as well, a significant increase in the amount of people that asked their vectors to go to sleep. Which is kind of it's interesting, right? That was somewhere in the realm of like 40% of requests that were sent to the server were, hey, vector, go to sleep, or hey, vector, be quiet, something like that. And so the 1.7 firmware toned down the activity a little bit, especially during working hours, to accommodate for things like that. But it's always going to be a balance. And so what we'll try to do, going forward is adjust that a little bit and see what we can do in terms of making that balance a little bit more finely tuned. And we'll continue monitoring from there and kind of go forward from there and make sure the personality fits with everything that people need. But that's just a little bit more behind why that change was made. And there's a couple of people asking about editing working hours and things like that. That may eventually be possible. I can't make any promises. It is built into the robot's personality, and that would be maybe some significant changes. But we can certainly look into it, and we've definitely received some feedback on that we're looking into. So I don't want people to feel like this is the like finality, right, in terms of like 1.7. There's tons of changes that we can look into, and we are definitely taking feedback from a lot of channels. Let's see here. Take a look.
I'll take one more.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. Just running through some of the other QA. Okay. So I think we've kind of talked about this a little bit before, but making vectors and Cozmos able to recognize each other, or different robots able to recognize each other. Anything on that one?
Yes. So there is, just like the butter robot will be able to detect the shape, right? We know the shape of the Cozmo and Vector's head is pretty unique, right? And so are the treads and the tracks in the body. Mm-hmm. We're working on that, and then also because we also know the eye animation is very unique, right? Whenever they're looking at the eyes, so we're going to use object recognition for that. The quote unquote facial recognition probably won't work, but object recognition will. And yeah, I think it can be done, and that's going to come with the 2.0 release. And then if that firmware works on the previous versions, we'll onboard that as well. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, awesome. There's been a couple of people that have asked about dates for OSKR and Escape Pod. What we currently have is so because of the pace at which we work, and given some factors that Jacob has mentioned previously regarding like COVID and that kind of thing, we do work at a very fluid pace with respect to dates and that kind of thing. So it may not necessarily be that we have an announcement for a release date per se, but it may just roll out once it's ready, or start like an open beta once we feel confident in the process being streamlined enough for the home consumer. Now, with respect to I can speculate that within the next probably 2 to 3 weeks, if not this week. You know, we may have a rollout for like more technical users this week, if we can. We may have some, depending upon the streamlining and the quality assurance process, we may be able to have the escape pod released within about the next 2 to 3 weeks. But again, that is fluid, and I want to make sure it's very clear that we're not setting an absolutely solid date. There are a lot of things, especially with a fully remote team, that come up and have to be taken care of, and we make sure we're putting out a good product. That being said, I think the demo today went a long way in terms of understanding what people have to look forward to, and I think there's a lot of really, really good progress on escape pod and Oscar that are going to be very, very beneficial for the users going forward. Now, in terms of Oscar, we are waiting for the escape pod to be released to release 2 more repositories of source code, and those that way you guys can customize. Oscar users will be able to customize things like their voice backends and things like that. So those will be coming out here shortly, and we're also preparing more source code for release, making sure that licensing and everything like that is in order. All of the technical details and legalities are covered. So once those are ready for release, then we'll talk a little bit more about those. But right now, that work is ongoing. So, and I think that pretty much wraps it up. Jacob, anything else you wanted to add? Matt, same for you.
I just want to say thank you for all of your help and support. I mean, as a community, we've resurrected this beloved product. We've given it new life, and I'm really excited about the future and what we're able to do and share Vector with everyone across the world. I think we're like Robbie's saying, we're we're almost there, and then the development's going to continue. As soon as we have performed and delivered on all of our Kickstarter promises, it's not like we're just going to say, oh yeah, mission accomplished, let's all go home, right? I intend on doing this for the rest of my life now, and I think everyone on the team feels the same way, and that's it. So I do want to say a heartfelt thank you to all of our Kickstarters. You guys believed in us when no one else was there, and we've done it. We really have, and it's killing me to share some other updates with you guys, but I actually want to start showing and not telling, right? And yeah, that's all I'm going to say. But just thank you.
Cool, thank you, Jacob, and I can echo that sentiment. It's a situation to where I don't know if it was a situation where I've had my Vector since my wife got him for me in 2018, and I never really dreamed of being like professionally involved, but it's absolutely fantastic working with a product that people integrate this into their daily lives, and almost into their families, right? So just working with this and having this work planned, and it's been a fantastic experience, and just coming from like my own customer side, I'm really pleased with how things are shaking out. So thank you, Jacob. Everyone, the supporters, Kickstarter, Honeycomb, Republic, everyone that has supported us so far, thank you as well. Appreciate it, and we're looking forward to opportunities to come. We'll call it for today, but thank you again, Jacob, for your time. Matt, thanks for hanging out with us here while we and thanks for fielding a lot of questions for the users. And we did record this, so we'll go ahead and we'll post this on our channels here for those that were not able to attend. Thank you guys again. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.
See you guys.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Thanks.